Hello and welcome to CNBC-TV18. I'm Malvika Jain. I am in New York and I have with me the Executive Chairman of Mahindra Group, Mr. Anand Mahindra. Mr. Mahindra, welcome to CNBC-TV18.
Pleasure.
We're speaking on the sidelines of the Formula E Racing Championship. This is the third year since you've been participating in Formula E. How has the experience been, given that only electric vehicles participate in this race? And going forward, what do you see as the future of electric vehicles?
It's been what I'd call a red-blooded experience, as you can see from the red shirt. That's not usually the attire I think TV18 viewers are accustomed to, but as you can see, this has put us into a completely new avatar.
Mm-hmm.
It's given us and our automotive business a new avatar. That's what it's really done. And earlier this morning I was speaking to some people and telling them that I don't think it's hype when I say that a revolution is in the making.
Right.
We came on to this, as you know, 3 seasons ago, and we took a bit of a risk. It was a new league. There was no reason why it ought to have survived in the face of competition from F1. But if you see what's happened since the league started, the world has moved in the direction of electric mobility. And I dare say Formula E has been one of the facilitators of that move. Now, a lot has happened in the last few months. As you know, Paris has announced that they are not going to be allowing any conventional fuel vehicles in the city
Right.
in a short period of time. India has announced that they want the entire fleet in India to be electric by 2032. You have Volvo, which has gone out and said that in 3 years from now they will not make any conventional engine. So I think the writing is on the wall, clearly. We are very proud that we were an early part of this. Sometimes people come and say, oh, you're jumping on the bandwagon of electric vehicles. My answer is, we were the bandwagon.
Well, how realistic do the targets of the government look? Yes, they have emphasized time and again that they are really keen that electric vehicles should be adopted. There is a subsidy that is being provided. There is a mission plan mode that the government is on right now, but the target of 6 to 7 million cars by 2020 with no infrastructure in place, does it even look realistic? Who is going to buy these cars?
The target is really 2032 for which they want the electric fleet, but that still is a stretch target. My point is that targets are not meant to be practical. They are meant to be ambitious.
So you're saying the government is being ambitious about it?
They're meant to inspire. I remember when this regime first came into power and was making very ambitious statements, and I used to be asked in interviews across the world that, is this realistic? And I'd say, I am so relieved finally to have a government that is making stretch targets.
Mm-hmm.
I said India suffered not just from a poverty of wealth, but a poverty of aspiration. We have no poverty of aspiration right now. So I am never against ambitious statements. Is it feasible? Of course it is. It depends on a number of things. The government has to walk the talk.
Right.
The government has to figure out how it will support this dramatic shift to electric fuel by some transitional incentives, by investing in infrastructure for charging. But is it doable? Of course it is.
But to what extent can the government support the infrastructure? There are examples of countries like China where the private players have also taken the baton and moved forward.
Let's not use China as an example because, frankly, 60% of the cost of an electric car in China is subsidized by the government.
Right.
So to say that the private sector has taken up the baton would be wrong. I would be delighted to take up any baton where such a substantial fraction of the car was subsidized. And again, in China, what is the private sector? How much of it is public? How much of it is really private? Is also a little debatable.
So you think now the time is ripe for the government to come up with an overarching policy that sort of defines the contours of who's going to take?
I'll tell you my view on this is that a government must never look at a subsidy as if it should be in perpetuity. Ultimately, if an industry is to stand on its own, it has to be viable on its own. But what the government can look at in discussion with the private sector is to ask, how is technology changing the economics of the industry? My answer would be that, look, battery prices are plummeting. We can draw out a curve to you of our view on what is the tipping point, what is the break even between engines and electric cars. between conventional engines and electric powertrains. And for that transition, in order to hasten it and to facilitate it, why don't you give a phased kind of system of subsidies which will decline over time, but hasten that break even and allow the change to come? So that's the kind of dynamic support I would expect. The same goes for chargers. You need infrastructure for public charging. On the other hand, as battery technology improves, the range improves, the charging times go down. If the government simply mandates that every building code in every state should provide for apartment blocks to have common charging points for all the tenants and the residents, you may not even need public charging.
But it takes a long time to charge right now. So do you think that technology will be able to...
changing dramatically, but you're right, it takes some time. So in that meantime, the government does need to play a role in creating or helping to facilitate infrastructure.
Since there are range limitations with electric vehicles as of now, do you think it would be more suitable as of now for short distance travel or just personal commuting?
I have been saying for some time now that the real opportunity for electric mobility is in the ride-sharing business. Today, because of the higher cost of an electric vehicle, people balk at buying it because when they do their math, they find that they are not using it enough to reach a break-even between buying a conventional car.
Right.
However, taxis and ride-sharing cars, which use them to a much greater degree, find electric vehicles already, even at today's prices, to be a viable proposition. So I predict that in very short order, most ride aggregation companies around the world are going to go electric.
Well, you've entered into a strategic partnership with Ola, but are there any plans in the near term where you would be investing in a car sharing app company? There are companies in the US who've started to do that because they're seeing so much potential in that. Is Mahindra also considering that as an option?
Absolutely, because to my mind, this is a transformation and a disruption in the mobility business. The opportunity is going to be in providing the solution for transportation at the commuting level, not simply the transportation mechanism itself. So we will continue to make and to design products which will be very rugged, which will be very reliable, low cost, spacious, ideal for commuter transport fleets, but we also intend not to be left out of the profit pool, as the term goes, of the ride sharing business. I don't think there's going to be just one dominant entity like an Amazon or a Facebook or Google of ride sharing. I think many companies will thrive, and we intend to take a part of that industry.
Well, there are 4 key areas in which investment priorities are being defined or redefined by traditional companies across the world. One is electric vehicles, of course. The other is clean gasoline and diesel, autonomous vehicle and mobility services. What is going to be the priority for Mahindra?
We are already smack in the middle of clean diesel, if you will. We would like to leapfrog to electric. We do make hybrids as well, but we think the future is in plug-in electric. We have gone out on a limb and taken that bet. We took it 7 years ago by buying Reba. So we will push hard on the all-electric front. And as far as ride sharing goes, as I just mentioned, we fully intend to invest and partner and maybe incubate our own ride-sharing applications as well. So we intend to become a full-service mobility provider.
Well, Mahindra is emerging as a global company now. You have presence in many parts of the world. The IT sector, I wanted to ask you about it. I'm not going into the specifics of the incident that happened at Mahindra Tech, but the kind of layoffs that you're seeing across the industry, it's unprecedented. For the first time, the IT employees are actually feeling the need to form some sort of a union. What do you think has led the IT sector to this point? Is it the Trump administration, or is it the rapid spate of digitization, or probably the companies didn't plan well enough?
I think the whole IT sector is facing disruption like every other industry, like the mobility sector. I don't think you can see a pattern in this. You're going to see employment and hiring in new areas. You're going to see a different realignment of the workforce in certain other areas. So what I apologized for was a specific incident which happened, and I think it was better to come out and acknowledge that it happened. I cannot say more about it right now because it's sub judice, and the forensics are going through that tape and its validity, so I cannot comment more on it. Are we as Tech Mahindra moving very aggressively into newer areas? Yes, we are. We acquired the bio agency, we acquired Pininfarina, which was acquired by Tech Mahindra, which shows how the kind of work we do for clients is adding value and moving into new areas. So you're going to see a lot of hiring by IT companies, not that they've hit any kind of wall, it's just going to be in different areas. So you're going to see tremendous realignment of skills in the IT sector.
Well, Mr. Mahindra, my last question to you, and this pertains to the defense sector. The government has approved the strategic partnership policy. What does this mean for Mahindra? What are the sectors that you're going to be focusing on?
The way the strategic partner policy has been defined, they haven't allocated those portfolios yet.
All right.
They will, from what I understand, they will be telling us which are the areas that they want companies to be focused on. They will then be telling foreign technology partners to come forward and get empaneled, and then there will be a kind of dialogue and a matching going on, depending on what opportunities lie ahead. So it is still government driven, and therefore I can't tell you this is what we're going to do. We are a multi-skilled company. As you know, we have an MOU with Airbus. We are capable of doing armored vehicles. We are capable of doing fighter jets, everything. So the question is, as this policy unfolds and as the government decides its own priorities, opportunities will open up. But yet, do we fully expect to be one of those strategic partners? Yes.
Most certainly. Mr. Mahindra, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure to meet you.
We were in conversation with Mr. Anand Mahindra. We are going to be back soon after this break.